Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories.
Vampirella.
We open on planet Draculon where rivers naturally flow with blood but we never get to see them. A criminal named Vlad is on trial for the crime of drinking neck blood from presumably another vampire like himself. The council decides that execution will teach him a lesson, so Vlad does this cover pose while his entourage make a dramatic entrance. They shoot up the council and spring their leader from prison, but before leaving Vlad hits the High Elder with a belly flop. Bitter rivals, he sinks his waxy teeth into his neck, then yoinks his medallion of no significance to kick a dead horse when he's down. There's then no other layer of security between the Fantastic Four and their spacecraft, so the outlaw vampires leave the planet. Vlad flies them to planet Earth, and since the year is 1000 BC, there's less than 100 million blood bags walking the surface. Back on Draculon, the council is found slaughtered by the High Elder's daughter, who gets to hear his final words. King Vamp tells her not to lose herself seeking revenge, but Ella goes in the complete opposite direction and vows to avenge him. 3,000 years later, in the city of Los Angeles, Adam Van Helsing gets a tan from the UV light in the elevator on his way to work. He's a vampire hunter who operates out of a secret underground facility that has a giant crucifix behind the desk as two-step verification. Purge agents use silver bullets in their guns, and Lieutenant Walsh needs to show Adam a video of a shuttle touching down after a recent trip to Mars. It brought back a giant bat from space, but it's safe to assume that this was Ella because the astronauts John and John weren't slaughtered. Somewhere else in LA, a nerdy young man is carrying around his entire personal computer when getting jumped by a couple of thugs. Ella appears in revealing space lingerie that looks like it's made out of fruit by the foot and goes on to beat up the bullies. Apparently this is her flight suit from planet Draculon, and once the nerd is safe, he introduces himself as author Forrest Ackerman. He thanks Ella by bringing her home and not offering her a jumper or maybe a blanket or something, just listens to her talk about revenge. In a flashback, Ella is shown receiving a lifetime supply of synthesized blood from her mother the day she left Draculon. She put on her fruit roll-up spacesuit and pursued her father's killer until flying into a cosmic cloud right above Uranus. Ella was forced to make a crash landing on Mars, where she was only discovered 30 centuries later by the Johns. They stumbled across her hibernation chamber and brought it back to Earth on their shuttle because that usually goes well. In this case, she simply woke up and hypnotized the astronauts to forget they ever found her, then flew away in bat form when landing. Forrest lets Ella check out the names of Dracula's posse on the interwebs, and fortunately Professor Traxx didn't think to change his. Only when Ella goes after him does Forrest finally give her an overcoat for covering up and receives a kiss in return. He then thinks of combining her name and species into the alter ego Vampirella, and she goes by that for the rest of her time on Earth. When she eventually locates the first of Vlad's lackeys, she takes off the coat as a distraction or possibly for aerodynamics. Traxx apologizes for killing Ella's father and genuinely seems like a changed man, but she threatens his kids, so it's game on. However, he can't fight, so Ella basically folds up his clothes while he's still wearing them and kicks him out a window onto a wooden post. She then gets an unnecessary run-up to transform into a bat and fly over to Traxx's home in hopes of finding Vlad's location. She takes a sip from one of her vials, so I guess it's vampire lunchtime, and sneaks around in bright red pleather underwear. She left behind the black coat made for this exact occasion, but finds Vlad's new identity as a rock star named Jamie Blood. He runs a criminal empire, and his space lackey Demos gets around in a trash bag to protect himself from the sun. A low-level vampire employee shows the shrink-wrapped alien no respect and doesn't even believe they come from outer space. The trash bag trio shoot one of his henchmen, then tie Carlos upside down on a crucifix, but it doesn't harm him like a little one would. Demos then begins torturing him with sunlight, but a purge strike force has arrived at the compound and take out all the guards. They end the vamp-on-vamp violence, then take Big D back to their headquarters for a little torture-aided interrogation. They could just check a computer after learning his name, but they threaten to inject the vampire with holy water until he snitches that Vlad is in Las Vegas. Vampirella's already in the crowd watching him perform, but isn't very impressed or just doesn't like the Who. He comes up to her after the show and no fans swarm him, so I guess everyone finds him a generic act and says, "I couldn't help noticing you noticing me." Vlad doesn't seem to remember the daughter of his mortal enemy nor find her name Vampirella strange, and just thinks he's getting lucky. He takes her to a lookout miles away for some reason, and they try bite each other simultaneously, but Purge arrives with Van Helsing. Vlad knocks Ella out with a single strike as he's much stronger than Traxx and recognizes Adam as the son of his other mortal enemy. Purge is made up of a bunch of douchebags who believe that Ella is working with Vlad, so they take her prisoner as well. They know she's a vampire, but Captain Creepy still asks to be left alone with her and risk getting his steak bitten off. In the back of the other truck, Vlad hypnotizes the driver into crashing in a spectacular way that somehow kills every agent of Purge. Only Adam survives, and Vlad puts drinking him on hold to free Ella from her shackles, but she saves the human from being bit. She takes off her coat for that aerodynamics that's well needed, but Vlad pulls out the cheesy effects and flies away. Ella remains here to help Adam, then he brings her to Purge headquarters in the morning because he trusts her enough to risk it all. She's immune to sunlight and the cross that Walsh whips out in her face because of something to do with arriving 3,000 years late. A difference in atmosphere when the other vampires arrived made them allergic to holy relics and able to turn people by biting them. A Purge scientist has developed the largest UV flashlight I've ever seen and lets our resident vampire give Walsh a tan. While Ella's acting a fool on the glass after seeing Demos still alive, Walsh expresses his belief that she's a spy sent here to seduce Van Helsing. He may be onto something because when checking into a hotel, Ella immediately strips into her distracting shoestring flight suit. Adam sits to hide his shame and explains through a flashback that Vlad turned his father into a vampire, so he was forced to put him down. This type of story gets someone named Vampirella going, but Adam turns down her advances, then skedaddles when she says her doors are always open. Meanwhile, at Vlad's desert hideout, the only other blood-sucking alien gets her first bit of screen time since busting her cult leader out of space prison. She tells her watchdog Quinn to remain outside because Vlad is having a tantrum that his clip-on extension disguise has been blown. He orders Sallah to send a couple of her big-breasted blood-sucking bimbo friends to capture Adam and make a trade for Demos. Vampirella puts the prisoner back in his trash bag and takes him to an amusement park graveyard where everything remains turned on at all times. Quinn shows up with a couple of hussies for the exchange, but he tricks Ella with a vampire shapeshifter or whatever the hell that was. She transforms into a bat and flies away while Purge manages to gun down the groupies, but Quinn and Demos also escape in bat form. At Vlad's hideout, they meet with the Vampire Council to hear his plan about using satellites to turn the sun off in 24 hours. Something about emitting radiation to cause a nuclear winter, but Vampirella arrives to prevent it with deadly karate chops. Sometimes she just pushes guards into a wall to knock them out, but not sure why she's searching for Vlad's coffin in the middle of the night because he's naturally up and about. She's captured and taken to Adam, where we learn that Ella was adopted and comes from the same crappy bloodline as Vlad. They're vampire barbarians, so he takes her synthetic blood vials and locks her inside the jail, hoping she'll feed on Adam. For all her jiggling, she's unable to escape, so when Adam wakes up, Ella tells him to shackle her to the wall if he wants to live.
Do it.
He then kisses her hard enough to give a space vampire whiplash before trying the door himself that the superpowered alien couldn't budge. Ella begins getting really thirsty, and we get some great faces out of Adam as Vampirella breaks out of her shackles and goes to feed on him. She manages to restrain herself, so Adam lets her drink just enough of his blood to get stronger than Vlad, as that's a thing. He then pretends to be dead while Ella pretends to have killed him, then chokes out the guards and just finds guns with silver bullets lying around. She approaches the Vampire Council with Adam hiding beneath a cloak and could really do what she wants right now, but chooses to kiss Vlad first. She then knees him in his vampire balls and shoots the computer, which causes the satellite to magically blink out of existence. Adam then kills Sally with a silver bullet as Purge arrives, and the scientist Bob disintegrates Quinn with the UV cannon. They raid the compound, so Vlad runs away while Ella gets saved from Demos when Walsh silver bullets him in the back. Vlad enjoys dramatic set pieces, so flies to the Hoover Dam where Vampirella follows because she's slightly faster. It's not clear how exactly because Vlad moves at the speed of a normal human while Ella kinda plods along behind like something slower. We take a tour of what seems like the entire facility before Ella must turn into a bat off screen and catches up to Vlad for the final showdown. The rivals fight across the dam, or about 25 feet of it, but with human blood running through her veins, Vampirella is able to take a slightly better beating. She hurls a metal rod through Vlad's heart, but since it isn't wood, he pulls it out only to get electrocuted, the silly goof. A golfer would have known better, as the vampire is set on fire by the lightning storm and sent screaming over the side of the dam. We're shown this angle instead of seeing the impact as Ella finds her father's stolen necklace that had no bearing on the story. She says that she plans to teach vampires to live with humans in harmony, but without organic rivers of blood and mother's synthetic blood vials that seems unlikely. And the movie ends.